Hello and welcome to Law Insiders series of Insight of Cyber World, where we'll cover the trends of cyber world through legal lens. Today we are going to discuss the topic Data Hack to Privacy Breach, an unforeseen danger from AAROGYA SETU and Google. And to discuss this, we have with us today Advocate Dr. Pavan Duggal. He is a cyber expert, lawyer, educator, and speaker, and has made an immense impact with an international reputation as an expert and authority on cyber law. He has been recognized as one of the top cyber lawyers around the world. Dr. Pavan is the founder and chairman of the International Commission on Cybersecurity Law. He consults various UN bodies on cyber laws and cybercrime and is associated with various international organizations. Dr. Duggal has always been vocal about the need for the creation of strong cyber laws in the country. He has been associated with the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Government of India on cyber law and cyber crime and other legal issues. He is also a member of the Advisory Committee on E-Governance in Karnataka. Dr. Duggal has spoken at over 2,000 conferences, seminars, and workshops in the last 7 years and has lectured extensively in law colleges. As a writer, he has made his mark with 143 books on various aspects of the law in the last 20 years. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us here today. Sir, my first question to you is, how is the app, the AAROGYA SETU app, infringing the right to privacy?
AAROGYA SETU is India's foray in the area of contact tracing apps. We started it as an experiment primarily to fight the COVID-19, but very quickly it became apparent that AAROGYA SETU app was actually going ahead and playing in the gray zone. We need to appreciate that in India there's already a policy vacuum. India does not have a dedicated law on privacy, despite the fact that the Supreme Court of India has, in the case of Justice Puttaswamy versus Union of India, declared the right to privacy as a fundamental right and as an integral part of your fundamental right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. Also, India does not have a dedicated data protection law, though the Personal Data Protection Bill 2019 is currently pending adjudication or consideration before the Joint Parliamentary Committee. So in this gray zone, when there is no legal framework for privacy yet in the country, AAROGYA SETU app has actually come in and has sought to collect humongous volumes of data of Indians under the garb of fighting COVID-19. This has been primarily health-related data, which under the Indian IT Act and the rules and regulations is sensitive personal data. Now, once it's collecting your sensitive personal data, and once this particular app is a governmental approach, then clearly it becomes within the ambit of the protections awarded to the citizens under Article 21 of the Constitution, which means that it is going to have an impact on privacy. The fact that AAROGYA SETU app does not really show how and in which particular manner it's gone ahead and complied with the parameters of the Indian Information Technology Act 2000 and rules and regulations made thereunder, make it amply clear that we are not very sure how this law is compliant with India, how this app is compliant with Indian cyber law. Also, it's not very clear how this app is protecting your privacy. It's collecting your sensitive personal data, but when you dive deep, then you often find gray zones where you have no clarity of how your data is being accessed, by whom, by which governmental agencies, and for what purposes. So while it's being collected as a response to India's approach to fighting COVID-19, the fact remains is that this is going to be a long-term phenomenon. Already there is a ministerial statement to the effect that India will have this AAROGYA SETU app for many years after COVID-19 comes to a close. So these particular kinds of activities throw huge doubts in the intrinsic ability of AAROGYA SETU app as an instrumentality to protect your privacy. And if it's not even complying with the rules and regulations under the Information Technology Act 2000, then there are some serious questions that are being raised. More so, it is constantly collecting your data on a 24/7 basis. But it's only when you turn positive will your data be sent in an encrypted form to the server. Which means what happens to the time when you download the app and till such time you get infected. The app is still continuing to capture all your data every 15 minutes. Where is the data going? Who all is accessing it? What kinds of privacy checks and balances are put in place so as to ensure that the privacy of individuals is appropriately protected? There has been massive concerns, immense amount of criticism in the public domain, and so much so that there has even been more doubts raised because the government has not been very clear as to how Arogya Setu has actually evolved. In a RTI petition that was filed, different ministries were talking different things at the same time. So I think there's no denying the fact that Arogya Setu app becomes an important ammunition in the arsenal of any country like India to fight COVID-19. However, given the fact that Indians have a fundamental right to privacy, it would do far more better if this app does substantially more towards protecting the privacy of individuals rather than providing lip service. And finally, when government provides this Arogya Setu app, it effectively becomes an intermediary under the Information Technology Act. It's still not clear as to how the government or the app in particular have exercised due diligence while they have discharged their obligations under the law, while dealing, handling, or processing the medical data and sensitive personal data of individuals. So there are immense concerns which have been aptly ventilated in the public domain. And unfortunately, there's not much clarity on this issue, but it will serve the nation and Indian citizens far more if the government comes up with far more clarity on the privacy checks and balances and protections that have been incorporated in the Arogya Setu Act.
So the privacy policy of the app is not well defined. Although after an ethical hacker from France had raised questions, the official statement said that the data is encrypted and there's no reason to worry. To what extent can the citizens be sure that their personal information is secured, sir?
Well, citizens can never be sure that their personal information is always going to be secure, primarily because when you use the Arogya Setu app, you're governed by its terms and conditions and privacy policy. And the government says in those terms and conditions that you cannot make the government liable for any use or abuse of the medical data. So this is a kind of a one-sided app that people are using at their own risk. And if you are very conscious about your data and your privacy, then it's a good idea, as far as possible, to avoid using the app because the app operates in large number of gray zones and ambiguities. And these ambiguities only mean that your data is going to be accessed time and again by not just the collecting Aadhaar C2 app, but by a large number of governmental agencies for a variety of governmental functions. So I don't think that your data is safe. I also don't think that your data on the Arogya Setu app is secure because there have been various claims already in the public domain of how Arogya Setu app has been already breached in terms of its cybersecurity. This assumes more significance given the fact that this app is dealing with sensitive personal data of Indians. Also, considering the fact that India does not have a dedicated law on cyber security, there's already a policy vacuum. And in this policy vacuum, it's not very clear as to how the app is going ahead and taking strong steps to protect and preserve the cyber security of the data. Also, you have to understand that the app providers, including the government, has to follow the minimum standards of reasonable security practices and procedures under Section 43A of the Information Technology Act 2000, while handling, or processing the personal data. But when you look through these legal documentation of this app, you nowhere get a clarity as to how the app is complying with even those minimum standards of cybersecurity that the law has actually put up in place. Because it's not yet clear as to how and whether the app is ISO 27001 compliant or not. So there are huge concerns. And in this area of ambiguity, if you want your data to be private or secure, then the best option for you is not to share such data at all, and not to use these kinds of apps.
So, how dangerous can data theft of someone's medical records be?
Your medical data is crucial and sensitive only to you. It's peculiar to you and as a person. And in case if your medical data stands compromised, you are going to be prejudicially impacted in the present and also in the future. Because the said data can then be used to target you, not just by state and state agencies, but also by non-state actors, by cyber criminals. Your data can be sold for high premium, both on the superficial net as also on the dark net. So I think your data is far more crucial to you than a lot of other things in the context of your sensitive personal data. And the kind of prejudicial harm that can be caused to you as a result of misuse or abuse of such medical data can be immense. So it's in our own interest that we safeguard our medical data and we do not necessarily share it at those platforms or with those entities where there's not sufficient clarity as to how your data is going to either be dealt with in a private or in a secure manner.
So, there are reports that say that the phones now manufacture would have pre-installed Arogya Setu app. Is this any sort of a concern?
I think it's a big concern, primarily because the Arogya Setu app is itself shrouded in a lot of mystery. We still have not much clarity as to how the Arogya Setu app complies with the requirements of the Information Technology Act 2000 and the rules and regulations made thereunder, specifically the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines Rules 2011 and the Information Technology Reasonable Security Practices and Procedures and Sensitive Personal Data or Information Rule 2011. In the absence of crystal clarity in this direction, I think if you're going to get such app pre-installed on fresh smartphones being shipped or manufactured, then I think it's going to raise a much bigger issue of violation of privacy. And I think that could ultimately come up for consideration before the courts. Right now, these are exceptional, special circumstances, transient times, so not much noise is making about. But as things settle down and as we are victorious in the fight against COVID-19, it's very much possible that numerous legal challenges could be coming to courts of law in the direction of challenging the various aspects of the operations of the this Arogya Setu app.
So, the smartphone penetration rate in India is just around 30%. How can the app get accurate COVID statistics with such a small survey group? What do you think about the accuracy of the app?
Well, there are gray zones in terms of the accuracy of the app, primarily because it does not give you a crystal clear, accurate picture of where you stand. It may tell you that there's somebody who is infected, maybe within a 500-meter zone. But please realize there have been now new surveys whose reports have come in that for every one COVID-19 case that got detected by the government, there were hundreds that were undetected. So the accuracy of the app is itself into a lot of question. And I think it will be up to the experts to really give a complete picture as to how accurate or how inaccurate the medical picture or the medical data that's been thrown up by the Arogya Setu app is either authentic, correct, comprehensive, or is reliable. But I think it doesn't substantially help you in your decision-making process. If it just tells you that there are some infected people in the 500-meter zone, it does not tell you who's infected. It does not tell you whom you should or should not be in touch with. Merely saying that you have some X number of people in your 500-meter zone or 750-meter zone which could be infected is hardly of much help. And I think right now, COVID-19 has evolved. New strains and mutants are coming in. So in these constantly changing landscape of the infection, I believe the app needs to reinvent itself. It needs to make itself more relevant, more topical, and more useful from the perspective of both the government as also the ultimate users who will go ahead and download this app.
Google was down for some time recently. Many international reports claimed that this was a cyber attack from China. How do you see it, sir?
We have to be quickly now prepared for a new ground reality. And the ground reality is that cybersecurity breaches will become the new normal. During COVID-19 period, we've already seen the beginning of the golden age of cyber crimes. Cyber criminals are attacking at will, are stealing at will, and are doing all kinds of criminal activities at will. During the COVID 19 times, I've written a book called New Cyber World Order Post COVID 19. In this book, I've actually analyzed some very important developments that have begun to start irreversibly impacting and changing cyberspace. And my argument in the book is that by the time the world is victorious in the fight against COVID 19, we would have entered into a new cyber world order. A new cyberspace will be awaiting us, where cyber crimes will be the new normal. Increasing cybersecurity breaches will adorn a part of our day to day existence. States will become very powerful. There could be potential impact upon enjoyment of individual digital liberties, and we could see some mass migration of people from the superficial net onto the dark net. So, in this kind of a space that's happening, we should not at all be surprised that cybersecurity breaches are happening. I think we need to re engineer our minds from evoking a reaction of panic to just taking it as part of your day to day life is what we will have to work up to. It's not a question of if you will become a victim of a cybersecurity breach, it's a question of when you will become, if you already have not become a victim of a cybersecurity breach. So I think we have to focus work on cyber resiliences as a mechanism. What's happened in Google is only the tip of the iceberg. Investigations are still on. Different theories are currently coming forward. But yes, cybersecurity breach has happened, and that's the reason why the system went down. Now, at the end of the day, we will see more of these breaches happening. Therefore, let's not be 100% reliant on all these service providers or on the cloud, thinking that your data will be available on a 24 by 7 basis. Taking backups, having in place appropriate disaster recovery mechanisms and processes, and adopting cybersecurity as a way of life, apart from readily embracing cyber resilience as a part of the life culture, should be our key strategies as we now prepare ourselves to deal with these newly changed ground realities.
So, how can the Indian government keep a check on the cybersecurity to keep its citizens safe?
India, as of now, does not have a dedicated cybersecurity law. India only has one legal framework, which is the Indian cyber law, which is the Indian legal framework dealing with use of computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form. Now, the Indian Information Technology Act 2000 is not a cybersecurity law, though the 2008 amendments had provided a legal definition of the term cybersecurity therein. Now, India did come across with its National Cybersecurity Policy 2030, which is a good statement, collation of good motherly statements, but it has its intrinsic defect because it was merely a paper tiger. It never got implemented. Now, the government of India is likely to come up with a new cybersecurity strategy. Further, there is talks that the government could be coming up with a new dedicated cybersecurity law. So hopefully, as and when this new law comes in, it will provide more effective remedy to users whose privacy or security have been violated. But as of now, if you're talking under the current scenario, if you think that your privacy has been violated, you can definitely sue Google for damages by way of compensation under the Information Technology Act 2000 for its failure to comply with its statutory obligations as an intermediary under the IT Act and rules and regulations thereunder. And then you can potentially prosecute the same. Otherwise, if Google is able to demonstrate that it had complied with Indian law and had done all that was in its power and possession, to protect your data, then you will not have much effective remedy. I think the law was never drafted keeping in mind the user. The law has been more tilted in the direction of the service providers, giving extra special treatment or glove treatment to them so that they can be made to feel more comfortable. I think the time has changed, and it's time that the Indian government should now revisit the Indian approach on intermediary liability, making them more liable, both in terms of protecting the privacy and security of the data of the users, but also ensuring that they also comply with the parameters of the Information Technology Act 2000 and rules and regulations thereunder.
What international laws are available for an Indian citizen against such data theft?
Currently, there is no international data laws or cyber laws in place at the international level. There's a complete policy vacuum. Way back in 1997, the United Nations General Assembly had recommended nation states to come up with national cyber laws based on the UNCITRAL Model Law on Electronic Commerce. Thereafter, we saw the UNCITRAL Model Law on Electronic Signatures. But by and large, there's a complete lack of a cyber legal framework at the international level. States are still struggling to come to unanimity that principles of international law are applicable to cyberspace. So, in this context, I believe since there are no data specific laws at an international level, nor any international cyber laws, nor any international treaties, people don't have much remedy. Yes, there's one Budapest Convention, or which is the Convention on Cybercrime of the Council of Europe, but that's a cybercrime specific legislation, international treaty that's been subscribed to by more than 60 nations, but India is not a signatory to the Budapest Convention. So, as such, since the Budapest Convention has not been signed by more than two-thirds of the nations of the world, it hasn't got universal kind of support and acceptability. So, at the international level, I see that users hardly have any effective remedy given the policy framework vacuum that's existing at the global level pertaining to cyber laws and data laws.
So, how serious its consequences would be if the data stolen is sold or bought on dark web?
Consequences can be remarkably serious because if the data is stolen from any service provider and put up for sale on the dark net, the said data, once bought by state or non-state actors, could be used, abused, misused to your detriment. If the data contains sensitive personal data, health-related data, medical data, financial data, then the immense harm that's likely to befall upon you is going to be incrementally far more higher. So you can't say that I don't care about my data, and my data, if it's going to get sold in the public domain, it'll be fine and I'll be okay. No, it'll have an impact upon you, your digital present, your digital future, and therefore it's in your interest that you only pick and choose those service providers who have a professed stated policy towards protecting not just the security of their customers' data, but also ensuring and safeguarding the privacy of such data.
So, what do you think is the future of cyber laws?
Well, I think the laws are in a state of evolution. Cyber law as a discipline has become one of the most significant disciplines of legal study over the last 2 decades. From just a sector specific or a vertical specific law, cyber law today has become omnipotent. It impacts everything pertaining to all your activities done in the electronic ecosystem. The moment you are doing any activity today which involves a computer, computer system, computer network, computer resource, communication device, as also data and information in the electronic form, your activities are governed under cyber laws. But cyber laws have to be in a state of constant evolution. Taking the case of India, India enacted its cyber law in the year 2000. We only amended it once in 2008. Today, as we are to the end of 2020, we find that this particular Indian cyber law has got rusted in stone, and it's not yet been updated, topical with the changing ground realities of technology. So one of the key onus on the relevant governments and the policy makers will be that they must constantly keep on updating the cyber laws so as to be topical and relevant in accordance with the advancements made in technologies. And now, with new technologies and new technological paradigms coming in, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's blockchain, the Internet of Things, or quantum computing, or now the Internet of Behavior, I think time has very clearly come that cyber laws must be in a state of constant evolution, constant updation, and constant amendment so that they can effectively go ahead and address some of the more peculiar and remarkable challenges that these newly emerging technologies are beginning to bring forward. But our future is now intrinsically connected with cyber law. The coming of COVID-19, the coming of national lockdowns have clearly demonstrated that internet is now no longer just a network, it's a central lifeline for all of us. And as a central lifeline, we have to realize that whenever we are doing any activity on the central lifeline, it's going to have legal ramifications. States, non-state actors are going to be watching you. More significantly, anything that you publish, transmit, share, upload, host, or forward could potentially be used as incriminating electronic evidence against you by various stakeholders. So, therefore, people have to now adopt a new mindset while dealing with their activities in cyberspace. They have to be cognizant of the provisions of the national cyber laws because ultimately, ignorance of law is no excuse in the eyes of law. And you have to quickly realize that if there are going to be legal consequences for what you do online, then you alone will have to face the music and the brunt of the consequences thereof. So it's always better that you start knowing about the nuances of cyber law and incorporating that as a part of your day-to-day digital life activities. This is independent whether you are a lawyer or not a lawyer. I'm the honorary chancellor of an online university called Cyber Law University, where we have come up with various courses on different aspects of cyber law, cybercrime law, artificial intelligence law, cybersecurity law, Internet of Things law, and blockchain law. We've also recently launched an international certification course on cyber law to inform people about the various nuances that they need to know. These courses, which have been done by more than 25,500 students from 171 countries across the world, speaking 52 national languages, only tells us one thing, that there is a tremendous vacuum of capacity building which has to be appropriately addressed. Do not wait for your governments, for your organizations to update you about cyber laws. Please enhance your skill sets, your knowledge, because ultimately this cyber law is now going to be your constant lifelong companion. So once you understand the nuances thereof, at least you are in a much better uh, position so as to go through and navigate the various challenges and difficult situations that you will be seeing in your online digital life.
Thank you so much, sir, for the lovely discussion. And thank you so much for taking out time for us um, with your inputs and your insights. I'm sure the future looks positive. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and wishing you all the very best. It's seminars and webinars like these that help us to create more capacity building and for spreading the word. So, thank you for the good work that you're doing, and wishing you and your organization all the very best. Thanks. And